This pizza party is brought to you by Juice.GS. So after we finish up in here, we will have a group photo. We'll go outside the building and meet on the stairs that are just outside here by the dumpster, but the dumpster will be out of frame. And then we'll continue with the rest of our evening. So, let me introduce Ken Gagne, Juice.GS.
It's nice that the dumpster will be out of frame because where I work, we have so many dumpster fires that are just in frame every day. It's nice that we can be in the photo and not be the dumpster fire. So hello, welcome to the Friday evening of KansasFest 2019. I'm here to talk to you about Juice.GS, but before I do that, I want to give you something that I have learned about giving presentations. A few years ago, is this too loud? Am I good? Okay. A few years ago, Jason Scott introduced me to Bruce Rosenblum. He is the gentleman who created Publish It for the Apple II, one of the earliest desktop publishing programs. He still works in the publishing industry 30, 40 years later. And he gave me some insight into how he gives presentations at events, specifically what he presents about. He said that one of the most important things you need to do with a presentation is give the audience something they can use, something practical, a piece of advice, something that solves a problem that they have, or etc. It's important to establish yourself as an authority. Show that you know what you're talking about, that you have some insider knowledge into a specific topic, and that you're there to share it with them, because that makes you somebody that they want to come to when they have a problem. They look to you as a thought leader, as somebody who inspires them. And the third thing is to not have to sell them something. When you establish yourself as an authority, the long arc of that is that you and your company and your product become the leaders in that industry. And that is much more effective, ultimately, than being a salesman. And so, with that in mind, I'm here to talk to you about Juice.GS. But ever since I got Bruce's advice, I have not submitted a single talk about Juice.GS to KansasFest. Now, everybody has their own different presentation style. I'm not saying this is the correct way, but I found it much more engaging and interesting for me to talk about other things like podcasting, blogging, crowdfunding, etc. But in order to talk about Juice.GS tonight, I had to think, how do I establish these three things? Well, I'm not going to sell you something because a lot of you are already subscribers. Establish myself as an authority. Juice.GS is the only print publication dedicated to the Apple II. But again, the most important thing I can do is give you something that you can use. So have some pizza. I want to start off with a couple of anecdotes about one of the things I love most about the Apple II community, and including KansasFest, is the people that you meet. And the KansasFest has been a great opportunity in the 22 years I've been coming to meet not only new friends and new faces, but also people whose work I've admired for so long. Like many people my age, I grew up using the Apple II primarily as a games machine. And I grew up playing games like Spy's Demise, which was just so much fun. And this week I got to meet the creator of Polarware, which published Spy's Demise. I got to meet Mark himself. And that was such a cherished opportunity that I never would have imagined playing that game 35 years ago. Wolfenstein 3D is a game that I grew up beta testing for the Apple II. Eric Shepard was one of the leading developers to port that game to the Apple II.GS. And in fact, at my very first KansasFest in 1998, just a few months after the game debuted, I received an award. During beta testing, Sheppy had said to everybody, please test this game, but beta testers, please be aware, it crashes Bernie to the rescue, the Apple II emulator of that era. So don't bother trying it. I wasn't so good at RTFM back then, and my first bug report was, hey, it crashes Bernie. And so at KansasFest 1998, in front of a very large crowd, Sheppy presented me with the hey, it crashes Bernie certificate, which I still have to this day. So thanks, Shep. But more important, back in 2012, I got to meet John Romero and Lane Roth, who were the founders of id Software, which created Wolfenstein and so many other games. So again, just that connection from something I grew up with to the people who made it possible. Many years ago, in 2014, I went down to Washington, D.C. to attend a convention called MagFest. And I got to meet several cool people there, including Kate. Before she ever attended her first KansasFest, I got to meet a fellow Apple II user. But that's not all. While I was at MagFest, I was staying in the hotel where the event was being held. I was attending by myself. One morning, I go down to the hotel restaurant to have breakfast by myself. I pay my bill. I'm walking out. I notice this old guy sitting by himself, kind of like I was, just finishing his breakfast. And I continue out of the restaurant. I walk about 20 feet out into the lobby. I stop dead in my tracks. I'm like, wait a minute. And I turn around, go back into the restaurant. I approach him. At this point, he's paying his bill. I'm not in the habit of accosting old men who are eating by themselves. But this time I had to say, excuse me, I'm sorry to bother you, but are you Al Lowe, the creator of Leisure Suit Larry? And he said, why, yes, I am. And I meant to say, wow, I backed your Kickstarter. But instead I said, wow, I'm your biggest fan. Which maybe I shouldn't be because I was not age appropriate to be playing this game. Or having grown up with it. So nonetheless, I asked him, hey, I record this podcast called Open Apple. Could you record a bumper for me right now? Like, hi, I'm Al Lowe, and you're listening to Open Apple. And he said, yes, on one condition, that you also record a full interview with me. I was like, twist my arm. And so that's how I ended up with this cover story just 2 months later. I didn't go down to MagFest looking for Juice.GS content, but I sure did come home with it. Another one of my favorite games growing up was Agent USA, published by Scholastic, which also published Microzine, and developed by Tom Snyder Productions, right there. This was a game I would borrow from my elementary school's computer lab, bring it home on the weekend, and I loved all the things I got to learn about this game. You're trying to spread or stop the spread of a disease across the country, and you have to learn to read a map to understand how cities connect to each other on a map. You have to be able to read train schedules so you can get from city to city, and you have to grow these crystals, I don't know what that taught you, to stop the spread. But you had to buy tickets, and if you couldn't afford the ticket, then you could jump on the train just before it pulls out, which living in Boston I have now done, because sometimes you're running late. But I was borrowing this game from the school lab. I never had my own copy, so 5 years ago, I go on eBay and I buy a copy. Not necessarily to play it, but just because I wanted it. I wanted to collect a piece of my youth again. When I got the email receipt, it came with a note saying, hey, I've shipped your game, and by the way, I love the Open Apple podcast. I hope to come to KansasFest someday. And I looked at him like, well, thank you, Mr. Ian Baranowski. I'm looking forward to meeting you as well. And here he is, somebody I met through eBay. But like I said, I bought it just to own it, not necessarily to play it. And so when the box arrived, I sort of just put it in a pile. Just last week, I'm doing some spring cleaning, and I find 3 or 4 boxes that I bought on eBay 6 years ago that I never actually opened because I knew what was in them, and I just never got around to opening it. But then I realized if I got rid of the boxes, the packaging, I could actually save some space in my apartment. So I saw this one box, I'm like, oh, I know what's inside that. That's Agent USA. So I open it up, and sure enough, it's Agent USA. Published by Scholastic, made by Tom Snyder Productions. Great game. So now I have a copy. As I mentioned earlier, my day job is at Automatic, the creators of WordPress.com, the best job I've ever had. And it is a fully remote job. So everybody works completely remotely. There are no offices. So I can work from my home. I can work from Costa Rica, which I've done just because I felt like I needed a change of scenery. Mostly I go to Work Bar, which is a co-working space not too far from my house. So I spend my days hanging out with other people there who don't necessarily work for Automatic. They just work near me. It's nice to be around people. So every time I go into Work Bar, there is this digital board that shows who has checked in for the day. Who is present? Who are you going to bump into? And so just last week, the day after I open up Agent USA in my eBay box, I am walking by and I see myself checked in, and then I stop and practically do a spit take, because who else is logged in today but Tom Snyder of Tom Snyder Productions is there in my co-working space. And I'm sure I'm misreading this, but I pull up his Wikipedia page because he has one, because he's that notable. And yeah, and then as I'm looking it up, I'm walking around, I look up, and there he is. Just working on his iPad, drinking his kombucha, and working on, I don't know, Agent USA 2? But like, he's right there. It was stunning. Now, I didn't interrupt him. He's got his headphones on. I'm respectful. You don't talk to people when they have their headphones on. Even though I desperately want to just smuggle him in my carry-on to KansasFest. It's like, hey, I'm going to a convention of people like you tomorrow. Do you want to come? And also, if I had known he was going to be there, I obviously would have brought Agent USA to the work bar. I'm like, hey, I happen to have this with me. Could you sign it? But you can rest assured that I'm going to be bringing it to work every day from now on until I see him without his headphones on. And that's when I'll make my move. Now, like Al Lowe, is this going to become a Juice.GS article? I don't know. That's still to be determined. So it's TK. TK is a phrase we use in the publishing industry, including Juice.GS. It doesn't seem like it would mean much, but TK could mean Turkish Airlines. You know, American Airlines is AA, Turkish Airlines is TK. Or maybe TK means Toby Keith, the country singer, because why not? Or maybe it even means telekinesis, like the X-Men, because they can move things with their mind. But actually, TK means to come. It's not exactly spelled correctly, but when you are needing a placeholder to indicate that information is going to be put there later and you just don't have it right now, you use TK. So for example, in an early draft of last month's issue of Juice.GS, the headline, the subheadline, and the genre of article were still to be determined, but we had the actual content. So for now, we just put TK. And I know not to go to print with that. And so before we go to print, I do a global search for TK. I see 4 of them here, the 3 I just mentioned, and one more. Please see the figure on page TK. Like, oh, the pages aren't actually arranged yet, so I don't know what page this is going to be when it actually goes to print. So I'll fix that at the end. And then eventually I do replace them all. The only time this comes to bite me in the butt is when I'm talking about Dan Kotke. And then his name gets replaced with something random. So darn him. It's the only time that ever happens. So those are my anecdotes about people that I've met at KansasFest and through the Apple II. Now I actually do want to talk about Juice.GS and some of its history. I've always said that in order for Juice.GS to remain in publication, it needs 3 things. It needs content for you to read in the magazine and people to write it, which would be the authors of the content. And it needs finally people to read it. So that would be subscribers. Now, fortunately, we are doing very well in all 3 of these things. Juice.GS has published some great content, in my opinion, in the last few years. These are 2 of the issues we've published just since KansasFest last year. This is our annual staff photo representing people who either come to KansasFest or contribute to Juice.GS. And then we had a fantastic cover story all about the applesauce floppy disk controller. And then this spring, we had a great medley of articles over here. This is our spring issue. And then we also had Play-Doh, which Peter talked about earlier today. All 4 of these covers, by the way, designed by Jeff Weiss. Very good work that he does. So we have great content. We have great authors. We have a lot of people who contribute to Juice.GS and make this magazine possible. These are all the individual authors who contributed to the last 4 issues. Just 4 issues, and we've had 15 different authors contribute to Juice.GS, which I love to see. Not everybody is on our actual staff. A lot of these are freelancers, people who submit one-offs. They come to me and say, hey, Ken, I'd love to write an article for Juice.GS. Or I go to them and I say, hey, I'd love for you to write an article for Juice.GS. And if you look at the number of people who have written for the very first time ever, that's 33%. 5 of the last 15 authors had never written for Juice.GS before. And I'm so honored to have them dedicate their time to this aspect of our hobby and to be able to share it with all our subscribers. Subscribers, that's the other thing that we need. And fortunately, we have plenty of those as well. I show this graph every year, and I add a new year. This goes all the way back to 2004, when Syndicom started publishing it. And we've been doing really well over the last decade and a half. Now, Kevin asked, maybe this will be the year that Ken fixes his y-axis. No, it's working fine. I like this y-axis. The general trend is the same regardless of how it's labeled, is that we are going up and up every year. We get new subscribers every year. And even though this little growth right here is less than that, that's also because we're only halfway through the year, and we're probably going to be getting more subscribers in the last 5 months of the calendar year. But regardless, that number is still more than that. Just like that number is more than that, and that, and that. It's over about a dozen years of consistent growth. We are on track this year from our low point in 2006 to octupling the number of subscribers we have. And if you had come to KansasFest in 2006 and saw how many people were attending KansasFest, you wouldn't think that this would be the direction this graph would go. But it's been really encouraging and very exciting to see the Apple II community grow, because this graph can be seen in KansasFest attendance, Facebook participation, etc. So much more of the Apple II community is alive and well nowadays. Juice.GS has introduced a couple of new features in the last few years. We introduced automatic renewals, which is something a lot of people have been asking for a long time, because we would start, your subscription would expire, and you'd have to log onto the website and give us your shipping address again and your credit card number again, even though you gave it to us last year. And now it's automatic, which is super helpful. And it's also been great for our customer retention. My thanks to Stavros for taking this photo many years ago. And actually, just recently, I didn't realize this was a cropped photo. I've been using it exactly like this for so long. But over on the side here is Ryan Suinaga looking at all my money. Oh, Ryan. We made a slight change this year. We used to have 2 different product listings in our store, one for automatic renewals and one for just 1 year only, doesn't automatically renew. We combined those this year, so when you sign up, you automatically get an automatic renewal subscription, and then there's just a simple toggle that you can click to make sure that you don't get charged on January 1st. So we still offer that functionality. We're not tricking you into only getting automatic renewal. It's just that it's a lot easier for us to keep track of if everybody's buying basically the same SKU or stock keeping unit from our store. We added a new product in the past year, Stephen Wyrick's book. That was the direct result of us rooming together at KansasFest last year. We were chatting about his book. He mentioned he had some copies that he didn't know what to do with, and I was like, I know what to do with those copies. So we have sold a lot more copies of this book than I expected. It's not because it isn't a great book, but because it's been available since 2014. I've been really excited to see a whole new audience gain access to this literature. Steve also gave me permission to make sure that this book was distributed to archives, libraries, and museums around the country and the world. So there are a lot of places that now have this book that didn't before, including Harvard University in Cambridge, Massachusetts, The Made, which is a makerspace in Oakland, California, and the National Video Game Museum of Frisco, Texas. A lot of these places make their inventory available through interlibrary loan. So if you are near one of these libraries, or even if you're not, you can probably go to WorldCat, the website, and request a copy of his book if you don't already have it. Or you can get it from Juice.GS. We also made available some software that not necessarily in the past year, but for a while we've been collaborating with Mike Westerfield of the ByteWorks to sell Opus 2, which is the collection of pretty much everything that Mike Westerfield ever made for the Apple II. We also sell the source code to that called Opus 2 The Source, and you can get both of those in a bundle deal. And then Kelvin Sherlock saw the synergy there and made available his product Golden Gate, which is a cross-compiling tool that works with Orca. Jeremy was talking about it yesterday. We would love to sell more software in our store. We have the distribution, we have the audience of hundreds of, if not thousands of people who are aware of Juice.GS and who receive our mailings and our flyers, and we have the online store. So I know developers may not necessarily want to figure out how to set up a Shopify account, or how to burn CDs, or what the shipping rate is for a USB thumb drive to Canada. I can take care of all that for you. So if you have software that you want to make commercially available, talk to me. I'd love to collaborate with more people in the Apple II community. The future of Juice.GS is intrinsically tied to the past of Juice.GS. We've published a lot of issues in the last 24 years. This is our prototype, came out in fall 1995, a free issue that was uploaded to Genie as a demonstration, a proof of concept by our original editor, Max Jones, to see if there would be any interest here. He was trying to fill the gap that had been created by the recent cessation of publication of GS+. That's why the magazine is called Juice.GS. We were trying to fill the niche of GS-focused publications. But then as other 8-bit publications like 2 Alive went away, Juice.GS, despite the name, started to encompass all platforms and all models of Apple II. That was our prototype issue, and we have published many more issues since then. There we go. 95 issues. No, 94, 95, 90, how many? 94. We published 94 issues, that's right. Just came out last month. And you can observe a variety of layouts and changes over the years. You can see when Max was doing it on the Apple II, and then Ryan moved it to graphic converter, and then I moved it to Pages on the Mac. And then we started doing color covers, which is a very welcome change in my opinion. And someday we may have more color covers than we do black and white, which I'm looking forward to. That's how many issues we've published today. It's a lot. It's over 1,000 articles. We hit that milestone like a year or two ago. 1,000 articles about the Apple II. And if you consider 94 issues times 20 pages, that's about, I think, 2,000 pages at least. Like, imagine buying a book with that much information about the Apple II. Are there any books that big about the Apple II? I don't think so. That's going to be a hell of a compendium. Looking forward to shipping that. Wow. And there are individuals who sometimes go into our store and buy every issue we have. And then I have to pull those out of my stock and put them in a box and ship it. And that's a lot of fun. So, the future of Juice.GS. We have issue 95 coming up in September of this year. Cover story is going to be KansasFest, as it always is. After that, in December, we have issue number 96 coming up. If we continue beyond that, then that means we're going to have issue 97 in March of next year. In June, we're going to have issue 98. In September, we're going to have issue 99. And after that, we hit a problem because Max Jones founded this back in 1995 when the Apple II was the machine on which he did all of his production, and he'd only set aside 2 bytes. And after that, we actually hit issue 00 again. Which means that December of next year, we're going to be publishing the prototype again. And this is actually inspired by Mad Magazine. They recently announced they're going to stop publishing new content and just recycle old stuff. They're not going out of print, they're just going to print old stuff. And I was like, that is brilliant. What a great idea. And so this means that after that, we can release in March of 2021, volume 26, issue 1, The Roller Coaster Ride of 95. And every 25 years, this will just become cyclical. It's great. And after 4 cycles, that'll be 100 years of Juice.GS. But again, we only have 2 bytes. So after 99 years of Juice.GS, we're going back to year 00. And we'll just do the whole 4 25-year cycles again. This is great. Now I don't have to worry about content. I don't have to worry about authors. And I don't have to worry about layout because it's already done. This is great. I can just reprint old magazines and mail them to you for the same price. I love this. And it's so authentic to the Apple II spirit. Of course we're not Y2K compliant. Of course we're not issue 100 compliant. So I'm really, really looking forward to this. You have no idea. Unfortunately, that is actually not what we're going to be doing. We actually do have a vision for the year 2020, and it includes another year of Juice.GS. Yay! Now, actually, I want to continue this talk, but I forgot something in my room. So, Steve, do you want to play a video, and I'm going to go grab something? Sorry about that. Do you need the mic?
Yeah, I'll need that. I'm going to need the plugins.
Yep.
There you go. And the HDMI. All right. So I'm not in a position anymore where I have time to redo programming, and I help coordinate what's going on here at KansasFest with all these amazing people that are very smart. And so I have my little way I can contribute, I feel like, with those silly music videos. And I had one I had two I had made 2 years ago. And then last year got another song that got in my head that I had to do first. And then I got the Boot Up and Run one that we played earlier. And then this one that I also did 2 years ago that I've been grabbing video of it at this event. So it's the premiere here. It's almost done. I need like 3 more floppy disk dancers to go with this. But it's close enough to being done that you can see it here now. And I hope you enjoy it as much as I do.
It might seem crazy what he does today, fixing old discs so they don't fade away. He will massage the code, put it in its place. He'll make it fair, removing blocks that are in the way. He'll crack that floppy. Trace along to check the code. He understands its root. He'll crack that floppy. Let the duplicate work right. Of that there is no dispute. He'll crack that floppy. Writes the tools to do the job. He's getting those disks to you. He'll crack that floppy. Makes it possible to boot if that's what you want to do. Protected disk, we can't copy that. 4AM will dupe it, he don't hold it back. Well, that old program, it'll be just fine. Locksmith and copy 2+ cracks are a waste of time. Here's why. He'll crack that floppy. Trace along to check the code. He understands its root. He'll crack that floppy. Let the duplicate work right. Of that there is no dispute. He'll crack that floppy. Writes the tools to do the job. He's getting those disks to you. He'll crack that floppy. Makes it possible to boot if that's what you want to do. Slow him down, can't nothing. Slow him down, his cracking's too hot. To slow him down, can't nothing. Slow him down, I said. Slow him down, can't nothing. Slow him down, his cracking's too hot. To slow him down, can't nothing. Slow him down, I said. Trace along to check the code. He understands its root. He'll crack that floppy. Let the duplicate work right. Of that there is no dispute. He'll crack that floppy. Writes the tools to do the job. He's getting those disks to you. He'll crack that floppy. Makes it possible to boot if that's what you want to do. He'll crack that floppy. Trace along to check the code. He understands its root. He'll crack that floppy. Let the duplicate work right. Of that there is no dispute. He'll crack that floppy. Writes the tools to do the job. He's getting those disks to you. He'll crack that floppy. Makes it possible to boot if that's what you want to do. Floppy, slow him down, can't nothing. Floppy, slow him down, his cracking's too hot. To slow him down, can't nothing. Floppy, slow him down. The crack said floppy. Trace along to check the code. He understands its root. He'll crack that floppy. Let the duplicate work right. Of that there is no dispute. He'll crack that floppy. Writes the tools to do the job. He's getting those disks to you. He'll crack that floppy. Makes it possible to boot if that's what you want to do. He'll crack that floppy. Race along to check the code. He understands its root. He'll crack that floppy. Let the duplicate work right. Of that there is no dispute. He'll crack that floppy. Writes the tools to do the job. He's getting those disks to you. He'll crack that floppy. Makes it possible to boot if that's what you want to do. Passport.
Maybe I should go to the gym more often. Maybe I'd be inspired. Wow. Steve, that was an awesome music video. And I love the way you're always blending our vintage technology with modern pop culture. This intersection of new and old. It's so inspired and so amazing. A lot of the Apple II community is about a similar theme of melding old and new. And Juice.GS has published several articles on that topic. Last year, we did an article about vintage verification. These are two professors at Princeton who developed a way to basically detect nuclear weapons in a nuclear facility using Apple II hardware. It was so amazing. Before that, we wrote about how the Apple II intersects with the Raspberry Pi. But there's one modern technology that we have not done a very good job of acknowledging and incorporating. The Juice.GS content is still largely done on an Apple II. This is a review we wrote several years ago, It was written in AppleWorks on a classic Apple II 8-bit. And it was such a wonderful environment in which to write that article, that content. You have a spell checker, grammar checker, thesaurus. It just works. It's proven technology. And then we published the content in Juice.GS. And it looks so different from what we wrote it in. There's a disconnect there. And we haven't taken advantage of the latest trends in technology. And so I'm happy to announce a special edition of Juice.GS, Juice.GS Dark Mode. No more of this vast amount of white space glaring at you when you're trying to read the magazine. Finally, you can read it white on black, like it was meant to be read. So when it's nighttime and you need it to be nice and dark and not glaring at you, maybe you don't want to keep the people next to you awake, you just switch to Juice.GS Dark Mode. And it's that much easier. And we will have these available for purchase. At the vendor fair tomorrow. So please enjoy Juice.GS Dark Mode. So Juice.GS is publishing in 2020. We are looking forward to working with more software publishers. We're looking forward to stalking people at my co-working space and selling dark mode. But there's one more thing. One more thing. And it's not necessarily about Juice.GS, but it's again about the wonderful people and friends we've all made through the Apple II and at KansasFest. They're the people that you meet at KansasFest. The people who have heard about it for years and finally came. People like Chris or AJ, who had something that they wanted to share, and they came here to do it because they knew they would find a receptive audience. People who have been coming for several years in a row, or people who missed a year and came back, or people who have been coming here for most of their lives, long enough that Rockhurst should give them a degree. Every year, whether it's 26 people, which we've had, where the group photo fit on the steps in the lobby down to the pool table, or when we had 120 people and we maxed out our capacity, or this year when we have 80-something, all less than Dunbar's number, all less than 150, where we can actually go home having met every single person here. And I haven't necessarily had that opportunity yet, and I apologize for that, but I hope most of you have, that you've been able to make a new family and make new friends here. And if you haven't had the opportunity to do that this year, because you've been running around giving presentations, trying to beat Castle Wolfenstein, which you still can't do and probably never will, then there will be another chance. I was informed earlier this week that there will be a KansasFest 2020. And as of earlier this week, the person at Rockhurst, our liaison, I'm not on the committee, but I heard this from the committee, our liaison at Rockhurst was out of the office all this week and could not confirm the dates beyond just July 2020. But, yes! Prepare to never sleep. We are all dying, but some of us sooner than others. We're going to start off with 120 and end with 80. But that liaison came back into the office just today, and he had his priorities straight. And he reached out to the KansasFest committee, and he replaced those TKs. He did a search replace, and he changed it to the 21st or the 26th. So mark your, what, you want me to go back a thing? Sorry. There. So mark your calendar for July 21st to the 26th. Maybe I'll smuggle Tom Snyder in my carry-on and he'll be the keynote if I remember to poke holes in the carry-on. But regardless, that is something to look forward to next year. Another year of Juice.GS and another year of KansasFest. Thank you.